Hi everyone, Sandman here.
Hi Sandman, I'm the thoughtful Contrarian.
Today's video was brought to you by a donation from Nicholas, and he didn't give me a specific topic to cover, so I thought I'd talk about my interpretation of Manginas, and I want to give them a message if they're listening.
I don't know if I'm a mangina according to your interpretation. I'll listen to you anyway. And I'll have a man and mangina count.
Just look at yourselves and what you've done to mankind. It's Manginas and white knights like yourselves that blindly gave women the vote without forcing women to take any responsibility for it.
I was born in the 1980s, so I haven't done anything like that. What responsibilities do male citizens have that female ones don't? The responsibility to own property or to be able to read or have the proper religion, like in the good old days? I presume you are talking about the responsibility to serve in the military, which doesn't exist anymore. Granted, if a terribly dangerous war was to happen, I guess men would be expected to take up arms again. But I also think women would be expected to take care of the home front in that case.
And now the majority of voters are women,
who still vote for male representatives most of the time.
and even if we wanted to go back to traditional relationships, which we don't, with regards to the law, all we can do is sit and watch as our civilization continues to fail, and Gynocentrism becomes more and more powerful with each and every single passing day.
Looking at social issues through any ideological lens, including a gynocentrist one, isn't helpful. And yes, I think that radical feminist propaganda is divisive. Man count 1.
The banking and credit system teeters on destruction, and the markets look like they'll collapse any day.
What's that got to do with women voting? I would think that one of the main problems with the current financial system is riskful gambling. And generally speaking, risk-taking tends to be a bit of a male tendency.
And all you Manginas can do is think about how to defend women in return for physical delights.
I enjoy sex, and I never needed to defend a woman from anything in order to get it. If you'd be more specific, that would be helpful.
But what you don't understand is that you're protecting women from threats that no longer exist. There is no phantom menace of patriarchy out there trying to oppress women.
Patriarchy, a form of social organization in which the father is the supreme authority in the family, clan or tribe, and descent is reckoned in the male line, with the children belonging to the father's clan or tribe, a society, community or country based on this social organization. We don't live in a society where power, property, etc. are handed down from father to son. However, if we look at point 3 here, it says a social system in which power is held by men through cultural norms and customs that favor men and withhold opportunity from women. And that's a bit of a gray area for me, because you could make the argument that male attributes such as aggression and risk-taking come in handy in powerful situations. This would be an incredibly weak argument, however, but I could not flat out dismiss it. So I guess I'm half man, half mangina on this one.
If there was a patriarchy, why did it give women the vote, and why did it allow women to work in the workplace? Why did the men of the patriarchy give women transfusions, C-sections, and epidurals in order to make life easier for them when they give birth? And why did the patriarchy build washing machines and electric stoves?
Because of market and consumer-based economy?
According to you, the Manginas, these are all things that oppress women instead of freeing them.
I don't think so.
Manginas need to wake up to the idea that women are no longer weak and feeble as they appear. Most Western women these days are wolves in sheep's clothing, and they feel a kind of special thrill when they get Manginas and white knights to do their bidding and get nothing in return for it.
This seems like a very broad generalization to me. Some women sure do, others don't.
I'm sure that many people remember the Star Wars movies.
I love them, and you sound suspiciously like C-3PO.
And they remember that Darth Vader was a pawn of the Emperor. And that's exactly what you Manginas are. You're the Emperor's whore without even realizing it.
I think that's a rather bad metaphor. At least, I wouldn't expect the all-powerful matriarch to look, sound and feel like the Emperor. He's a guy, you know. And the Empire in Star Wars looks like a very militaristic society made up entirely by men.
You believe that somehow you're helping women become equal and get their fair share of money and power.
I'm an egalitarian, and rather solidaric as well. I don't think that quotas are the way to go, though. So again, half man, half mangina.
But what you don't realize is that women already have covert control over men. They already rule over us not with an iron fist, but with soft hands covered in white gloves. And they dare not get those gloves dirty, so they use you manginas to do all their dirty work.
Again, this is much too generalized for me to really comment on it.
That's the irony of taking the side of feminists as a man, or even becoming a feminist yourself. You're being used by women, and you don't even realize it yet.
I would say that male feminists are being used by feminism the way socialists are being used by socialism.
What motivates you to turn into traitors of men and defend women instead?
You're either with us or against us. Such begins the Fundamentalists' Manifesto.
As far as I can tell, you manginas out there are love drunk.
I like to love, and I like others to love me back. However, that's not what I'm basing my actions on.
But needless to say, you are the Benedict Arnolds and the Judases of this world. You've sold out the future of men for not gold and silver or honor, but instead for sexual gratification.
Ah, traitor rhetoric. Always the sign of a clear thinker. But I guess if you're so afraid of women, you can't really do anything else except for rattling your saber. Get it?
You could have gone to the brothels of Germany or paid an escort, but instead, you've doomed all men because of your instincts to mate with women.
I am from Germany, and I don't really understand what's so special about our brothels.
And I know these instincts are tough ones to dodge, and just so that everyone knows, every single man going his own way is actually a recovering mangina.
Your definition of a non-mangina is just as vague as your definition of a mangina.
But some guys refuse to grow a pair.
I've always preferred apple trees.
And for many of you manginas out there, it's not your fault. You've been raised by single mothers that have taught you to be completely obedient to women without question.
Now the snowman talks about his own biography, single mothers, etc. The amount of anecdotal evidence given by him is a bit too tedious and uninteresting for me to comment on. I want to make one point though. While I do think that the amount of children raised in single-parent homes are a problem, it's much too diverse an issue to blame it entirely on women. So I'll just accept this as a full mangina point for me.
And I hope that some of you manginas out there decide to take the red pill and awaken yourselves to female nature and how bad the Western woman has become.
Broad generalization paired with typical conspiracy theorists' reference to the Matrix.
She will not help you. She will only use you until she gets no other benefits from you.
There are symbiotic relationships and pretty much parasitic ones.
And as men, we're often using the rational as well as the reasonable parts of our brain to keep track of women's behavior.
Yes, men on average tend to be less emotional than women. And that is confusing at times.
And that's the problem. You can't rationalize away the cunning nature of a female.
What, have you got a plan, my lord?
Yes, I have, and it's so cunning you could brush your teeth with it.
It's more about instinct instead of solid rules. It's like music. Think of women as being jazz musicians great at improvising, while men are more like classical musicians great at reading notes on a page and playing them back in an organized way. Men are on beat, and women are off beat. And then women get men on their side, and they have the advantage of being both on the beat as well as off of it with regards to musical styles.
It's not a good metaphor if it works the other way around. For example, women tend to be more conventional and men tend to be more creative when it comes to solving a problem. The virtue of risk-taking. Women are classical music, men are jazz. And men can incorporate female strengths too.
Unfortunately for us today, throughout human history, the one thing that wakes men up from being manginas is when we fight in wars and when we face our own mortality.
Facing your own mortality is in fact an eye-opening experience.
For me, it had to do with reaching the age of 35 and reassessing my life. That's when I stopped being a mangina.
So you can do it without having a near-death experience. I do prefer that to endless wars.
And in the past, when we sent 19-year-old soldiers to war, and when many of them returned home, seeing the horrors of war, they were no longer afraid of anything.
Veterans might beg to differ.
Friends, they kept saying, "You changed." I says, "I didn't change. I'm fine. I see nothing wrong. I feel the same. I'm great." Well, my anger level, which comes to today, they just put it down as PTSD.
The term post-traumatic stress disorder did not exist at that time, in the early 70s. The thing was that everybody that was in the war or living or associated with a veteran who was coming back from the war knew that there were problems. And there had been a history of problems. We knew after World War I, there were problems with returning soldiers, and after World War II, it's been there for every war. It's part of the nature of war and the effect that it has on the human mind.
And they certainly weren't afraid to die, and more easily stood up to the torments of the women in our society.
Yes, with uncontrolled rage.
First thing to remember is, always treat your kite like you treat your woman.
Today, however, there are so many manginas out there because they've never actually had to deal with the real hardships of life.
I think that is the problem with many people who are obsessed with first world problems.
And because we can't have wars on a global scale, and we're using robots and drones to attack and kill one another, that basically rises the mangina quotient even higher. There will be more and more of them in each and every single passing year, and women will continue to get the positions of authority because men are increasingly yes men instead of leaders.
You really sound like an authoritarian to me.
If only I could wake you guys up to the horrors of what you're doing to all men. If only there was some way I could talk to the David Futrells of the world and show them what they're actually defending, and how deep the rabbit hole really goes with regards to women's control over men.
Wake you up, rabbit hole, red pill, blue pill, tinfoil hat.
It's there and it's subtle.
Got him with my subtle plan.
I can't see any subtle plan.
Well, Ricky, you wouldn't see a subtle plan if it painted itself purple and danced naked on top of a harpsichord, singing "Subtle plans are here again."
And you don't see it unless you have the cunning of a tiger,
So cunning you could put a tail on it and call it a weasel.
or the intuition of a fortune teller. And you manginas out there are followers of the religion of the golden uterus. If anyone questions the grandness of women, then you perk up your ears and come running to their side.
I don't.
And if women are truly equal to men in every single way, then why do they need you to come running to their side to cover her ears from criticism of free-thinking men? Are you doing that for her, or are you actually doing it for yourself? I think that when you defend women, you're actually looking for reassurance that you've basically made the right bet in taking the side of women. It's like a misguided Christian thinking that God planted dinosaurs in the ground to test the faith of true believers. You believe that the manosphere, including MGTOW, are like the devil there testing your faith, especially in women. Do you see how pathetic you've become? Women are in an age when they are more powerful than they've ever been, and yet you still believe that they need your protection.
I agree that a lot of male feminists act rather patronizingly.
Secretly, however, they're like corrupt priests laughing at you for giving them your faith, social currency, and whatever else they can get from you, and taking what you give them and wasting it at the casino.
Again, all of them.
I want all of you manginas out there to take the red pill if you're ready for it, and you can watch all my videos to find out more.
One incoherent conspiracy ramble is enough for me right now, thank you.
I also recently did another video for my Cool Buildings channel this week, and a link to it is in the description below. And it features a pharmacy, or what's known as an apothecary, as it was called in the 1800s, where they didn't have pills back then, and instead they used leeches.
Ah, I see what you did there.
And that's what women are doing to manginas.
I got it.
Most women out there are like Sith Lords, and you are their apprentices, and you have no idea the treachery that you're facing.
Your entire philosophy seems to be built on movies, but who am I to judge mine is built on comedy?
If you like what you see, then by all means subscribe.
Believe me, I have.
Another quick update, I've also been having some throat problems yet again,
Oh, I'm sorry.
and I was almost hospitalized in the middle of last month, and so I'm now paying close attention and taking lots of meds, and
It shows.
I'm also going to a voice coaching session next week to get some guidance so that I can try not to uptalk at the end of each and every single sentence.
Oh, I didn't know that this was because of a speech impediment. I'm really sorry about that C-3PO reference earlier. In conclusion, this was the most exhausting video I've dealt with so far. Within the ideology spectrum, the Sandman really seems to be a guy on the opposite side of radical feminists. And this is what that spectrum looks like. That is why he sounds and argues exactly like a feminist. He's the male equivalent of the stereotypical feminist. And my stereotypical advice would be, get laid. And get better.
I'm as poor as a church mouse that's just had an enormous tax bill on the very day his wife ran off with another mouse, taking all the cheese.
By the way, my mangina-count is 6-4, so I think I did rather well.
How sweet to be an idiot, as harmless as a cloud, too small to hide the sun, almost poking fun at the warm but insecure, untidy crowd. How sweet to be an idiot.